So yeah, speaking about the Olympic hockey game, did you end up watching it? The gold medal one.
Unfortunately, no. In fact, I've caught some hell this week for not watching it because we still do not have a TV in our apartment, number one. And number two, we had spent Saturday night hanging out with friends in Northeast. So we didn't get back here till 2 in the morning. So we didn't wake up until a little bit before 10 in the morning, at which point the game was already two-thirds over. And yeah.
Okay. But I'm sure you've caught like some of the highlights, and like I ended up watching the game from like the second period on, and dude, like from the second period on, essentially Canada went full maple syrup on the American team in terms of like trying to pound it in, and like one notable moment that left my jaw drop. It wasn't the Devon Taves at the goal line. Well, in the blue paint with the Hellebuck save. It was when Nathan McKinnon. I cannot stress this enough. Had a wide open net, and he had two options there. He could either sink or swim. And, oh man, did he ever sink, man? He sunk so hard.
He sunk so hard. By the way, did Scotland win any medals this year?
Oh, no, not that I'm aware of. And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcasts on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel to Ukraine, we go all the way to Uganda. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This, and it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I'm the only. I'm the one who's realizing it's a terror knowing what this world is all about, and I'm just watching some good friends screaming, "Let me out." Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, I'm surprised at this point in our lives that the Mona Lisa doesn't have a McDonald's logo added onto it, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, it's right there in the title. Every week, me and Ryan gather together to talk about a music album of our choice, based on what we like to hear, what we think is relevant, or perhaps there's a theme that we got going on, and we'll get to that in just a second. And we go through the album, track by track, line by line, verse by verse, note by note, pick out what we like, what we don't like, what we thought could have been improved, what we thought stood out. And then at the end of the episode, after we covered all the tracks, we give the album a rating out of 10. We recommend another album based on the album we just discussed. We pick a new album for the next episode, and thus continues the cycle of life here on Hey, Listen to This. So, last week, we took another turn in our Black History Month series, and boy, what a turn it was, because we covered an album by a hip-hop group that was once called, perhaps by themselves, if not nobody else, the world's most dangerous group, and that was NWA with Straight Outta Compton. And Ryan, how did you feel talking about that album?
Oh man, I felt, like as a music appreciator, I felt like, totally psyched because NWA was a group that I never really dug into proper prior to doing that review. And, post review, yeah, I'm feeling pretty psyched to have knowledge about that album as a whole. Doing the review as a whole was a bit of a challenge because, you know me, I'm a lyric head, and when it comes to hip-hop, and when we do hip-hop reviews, that's the only thing I kind of gravitate towards because, let's face it, there's not really much else to really talk about. I mean, you can have some cool moments here or there, but it's mainly just bars and flow. And there were a lot of moments within that review where I had to censor myself, and I probably sounded like, the the clean version of an Eminem CD that you would grab from Walmart when you were growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, nonetheless, excited that we did the review. It's another feather in our cap. So, Matthew, I'm gonna throw it back over to you. Do you share the same sentiment as me?
Yeah, I do, because I agree that it was nice to finally take a deep dive into Straight Outta Compton. Again, like you said, the episode was challenging because we had to censor ourselves so much because there are certain words that we can and will not say. But yeah, it definitely gave me a much deeper appreciation for who NWA was at their very core, which was really the first major popular gangster rap group that made any sort of noise in America. So I'm glad we were able to talk about that and add that to our library of things we've covered on this show, because we've gone all over the place, including, as I found out today as a little side piece, covering 7.5% of the Billboard 200 as it is of recording. And that includes albums such as Abbey Road, Purple Rain, and Toxicity. I don't know how that happened, but pop music is just an absolute dumpster fire right now as far as like units sold and Billboard's rules being, throw spaghetti at wall. So we're not going down that rabbit hole this week, Ryan. We're going down a much different rabbit hole this week. What is it that we are talking about this week on Hey, Listen to This?
So, on this week's episode of Hey, Listen to This, we're going to be traveling back to the year of 2023, where life was life. Like, I can't even say it was simpler times because it's not that far ago, man. But in the year 2023, we're going to be talking about an album released from a group that is based in Scotland, and that group is Young Fathers, and that album in question is gonna be named, in case you can't do a quick Google or look in the episode title, Heavy Heavy. Now, for those of you out there who clicked onto this episode and are asking the very important question that is just very essential to the existence of mankind today, in that question being, Whoa. What is a Young Fathers? Well, first of all, fair point. Like, it's not everyone knows of them, and I would only know of them thanks to, my favorite music critic, but more on that later. But, dear listener, I've done the research, I've done the note-taking, so let me do a quick drive-by of what is a Young Fathers, and then we'll go from there. So the group formed in the 2000s in Edinburgh, Scotland, and the group is essentially it's 3 members. And full disclosure, only disclosure I'm gonna throw out there for this entire episode: if I mispronounce any of these guys' names or anything, I'm just a white guy. I'm sorry. I'm pretty dumb with this stuff. But anyways, so the group members, you have Aloysius Massacoy, Chaos Bancolo, and Graham Hastings. So sadly enough, that last one was the easiest one to pronounce there. But yeah, the group started performing in nightclubs when the band members were all in their teens. So a little bit of backstory with each member of the group here. Aloysius was born in Libya, and moved to Edinburgh at the age of 4. Caius was born in Edinburgh to Nigerian parents, and he spent several years living in Maryland and Nigeria before moving back to the city of his birth in his teens. And Graham Hastings was just born in Edinburgh and grew up in northern Edinburgh. Out of the 3 members, Graham is Scotland, born and raised. The other two members are well, I guess Caius was born in Edinburgh, and he kind of bounced all over the place. And Aloysius was born in Liberia. So, yeah. So essentially, you know, you get the group doing gigs in nightclubs and everything like that. So they're a very I don't want to say experimental kind of group, but they're very much based in improvisation and really just riding at the grooves of their music. So through their improvisation, that led to experimentation. And they essentially poured all this effort into studio brainstorming, and you get a kind of a mix of cultural backgrounds. So all this resulted in their 2010s mixtapes, tape 1 and tape 2. So these tapes are kind of floating around the internet, and as buzz grew, the band went further into the deep end of esoteric music, and they took a gamble on booming beats, saturated synths, and otherworldly chants that gave the groundwork to their debut LP in 2014, Dead. And that album won the prestigious Mercury Prize, launching the group as a rebellious new force in the UK alternative scene. And even catching the ear of filmmaker Danny Boyle, who featured several of their songs in the soundtrack of 2017's T2 Trainspotting. So, and while much of the group's earlier acclaim was fueled by against the grand approach to music, albums after that, White People Are Black People Too and Cocoa Sugar showcase their astute pop sensibilities. And then obviously the album that we're talking about today is Heavy Heavy. And then for those of you who aren't aware, they actually did the soundtrack for 28 Years Later, that was released last year. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. So before I kind of give a background and what led me to wanting to present this band and this album up for contention here today, I'm gonna flip it over to you, Matthew. I think I already know the answer to this, but what is your relationship with Young Fathers? What is your mindset going into this review this evening?
Well, my background to Young Fathers, to quote the Shakespearean actor Wayne Brady, not a damn thing. I had no idea who this band was before you threw it out there last week, and I was just okay, we're at the end of Black History Month, and we're covering a group from Scotland. Ryan has some shenaniganery up his sleeve. So going into this, I was thinking, okay, this could go any number of directions. And yeah, there are several directions that this music goes on, because as you said, they are experimental. So I guess my lack of expectations were met in a weird sense, but I will dive more into that as the review itself goes along. So I will punt on fourth down back to you, Ryan. What is your relationship with Young Fathers, and how in the hell did you find this band?
Well, I think I kind of hinted at it. Didn't you pick up what I was putting down at the start of my overview?
Yeah. There's a bit to squeeze out of that melon.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't aware of what the reference that Matthew just made, and aren't aware of my personal background in terms of my favorite music, avenues that I go down to discover music. I discovered Young Fathers back in 2015, when the internet's busiest music nerd, one day we will get there, Matthew, did a review of their album White Men Are Black Men Too, So I checked it out, and I was digging what was being put down on the table. I was just like, you know what, this is pretty good. This is pretty good stuff. So, and then as the years went on, like the next album that was released in 2018, Cocoa Sugar, I really was digging what was going on with that album too. And then when the album that we're talking about here today came out, I'm not going to give so much, away right now what I think about the album, but know this, that similar to Barty Strange, it came across my radar, came across my ear holes. I listened to it a handful of times, and I would put it on occasionally, but I never really took the time to actually sit down and really digest what the group was bringing to the table. So I figured, since we had one hell of a time discussing Barty Strange, why not apply the same principle for Young Fathers and really kind of shed the light on I don't want to say that this is a different kind of group, but it's it's not a well-known group, and I think it'd be fun to talk about them. So yeah.
Well, I mean, to your point, it is very much a fun group to listen to, and I will say, an album name such as White People or Black People Too does get your attention very quickly. So, yeah, I can understand the promotion of hype sort of propelling this band to any sort of recognition, and they have taken it in stride in many a good way. So I am ready if you are, Ryan. 10 tracks are up, and I will throw it to you for the first of those 10. And that first track is Rice.
So I found this to be a wonderful way to open up the record. The way that this track just grooves and grooves and grooves for the entire runtime is the appropriate palate, appetizer for this album here. Because if you didn't like what was going on with Rice, I hate to say it, just turn off the record. This is pretty much home base. This is pretty much what the group's going to be bringing to the table. Not every track is like this, but this is a great starting point. So, outside of the fact that this track grooves and how it opens up the record, that beat is just infectious. It's so simple, but it's infectious. One thing I've liked about the beat is how the bass is doing that Doppler effect. You go, bow! I thought that was really cool. And then, counteracting that, you get the guitar doing that strumming chord pattern. And the whole thing kind of just has a drum circle kind of feel, for lack of a better descriptor. And I'm all about the positive vibes in that, especially in the year of our Lord 2026. So, outside of the beat, the way that the vocals just really, really dig into the groove only add to the overall effect of the track. They could have just done their own thing and everything like that, but you can really tell that the group, the vocalists as a whole, are really just riding the emotion, riding the feel of the beat and the song as a whole. So that adds to the enjoyment factor for me. I did really enjoy, though, where you get the switch up in the vocal production, where the vocals get distorted during the kill them slow, they reap, I sow, amen. That was just very sick. And you got to think about, the majority of the lyrics throughout the track are very, it's all right. Just very sunny, bright, everything like that. And then you get, that demonic, the dark voices are talking to you, man. So I thought that was pretty cool. And also, you get a dynamic range in this track with the way that the track ends off and almost like a tribal chant. I thought that was a nice touch. Lyrics as a whole are basically a nothing burger. They really do a good job, adding to the song's, overall feel. But there's not really a bar throughout this whole song other than what I mentioned that I want to highlight. But yeah, just the song is basically giving up vibes of things will be okay if you focus on doing the right things. So a little bit about the track from the musician standpoint. Aloysius is on record saying what they're great at doing is attaching themselves to what the feel of the track is and building from that. So that's basically like, what the the track is as a whole. Like they really just attach themselves to the feeling of the track and really enjoyed it. And like specifically within like the song structure as a whole, he was talking about that feeling of like just being joyous. Was what we were connecting to. It was the feeling of fresh morning air. You're on a journey. You're moving towards something. It feels like you're coming home to find it again. For him, it was finding that feeling of, okay, I love music again, because during COVID, it felt redundant to me. What mattered to me was looking after my family. So, like, with all that in mind, like, that's a perfect way to sum up the feelings of the track. So, I will say, though, Rice did come close to being in a top 3 spot for me. It's probably one of my only cut tracks off the whole record, and for those of you who aren't aware of what I mean by that, cut tracks are they just miss a cut and popping into my top 3. And in terms of my full gambit, my full hand, it contains only a top 3 in this review. I don't have a bottom anything.
So, my thoughts on Rice, I agree with you that this is a great way to start the album and definitely a test for anyone who's listening, because I will admit the first time I listened to this track, I was caught off guard because I had no idea what on earth I was listening to, because this song, like you mentioned, definitely has a repetitive groove feel to it, and that's the one anchor that it really has. Because as far as like trying to pinpoint a genre, you can't. You just can't do it. I found elements of indie. I found elements of R&B. I found elements of noise music. And as you talked about, particularly at the end of the song, I found elements of chant music. And it does coalesce together for the most part. It definitely has that feel of everything coming together and everyone sort of not necessarily grooving together, but coexisting together in a sense. Like, you have the chants over here, you have the verses over here, you have the beat doing what it's doing, and it's very much, it kind of reminds me of, if you've ever seen any movies where somebody has had a rough night, and they're just trying to recover, and they wake up in the morning and there's some wise guardian looking to feed them breakfast over a campfire and being like, all right, here's some food, take some time, get some rest, eat up, and go kick today's ass. That's kind of what this song sounds like. Sort of a mix between like Hakuna Matata and something you might get off like the Avengers soundtrack, for lack of a better comparison. The one lyrical highlight I did have was the lyric that contains the title, which is, I need to catch more fish, baby, I need to eat more rice. So again, more vibes of needing to forage for food in this new environment. And what's weird about it, because again, this is Black History Month, while I wasn't able to pinpoint one genre, I can definitely tell this felt very black coded, for lack of a better term. Like, it definitely has elements of black music in different levels of what it's portraying, whether it's, again, the beat, the chanting, and the overall feeling of togetherness that is going. It's very, very coded in that. I did appreciate that for what it was, too. Not to come off as too pretentious, but that's just my vibes, what I got from the track. So this is definitely a nice, sunny, get up, get going type of track to start the album with, and very experimental in its own right, because it does throw a few curveballs in there. However, for me, I'm not going to go quite as high as putting it as a cut track. I'm going to put it in the good song bucket, because this track is solid to me, and I did like it, but it wasn't something I was like, oh, just close. It was just like, no, this track's all right. I dig it. And for full disclosure, for Heavy, I have a top 3 and I have a bottom 1.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And I'm going to be, interested to see how the rest of this review, unfolds, because, it's a very experimental album, as you mentioned, looking at within the opening track, like there's clear evidence of that. And yeah, it's very intriguing, and yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see how the rest is going to go on. So for lack of a better segue, man, are you ready to tackle the next track, which is I Saw?
Yes, I Saw, and this one starts a whole lot different because while Rice had the vibes of campfire acoustic mixed with chant, here you get a very militant beat and militant vocals. The beat itself reminded me of a track we covered way back when we started this podcast. That being the track Black Skinhead from Kanye West off of Yeezus. I was reminded of that almost instantly hearing this beat because it does have that very march drum shuffle that just sort of really anchors this track down and pushes it to its heights. And then you get the militant vocals, which... how do I say this without being rude? It sounds like the most Scottish part of the entire album. Like, it sounds like... you kind of get what I'm saying, right? Like, it sounds like very... Like, we're going to fight the bastards for what they've done to us. And it's just like, whoa, all right. That's... All right, cool. You do you. But yeah. It was a very off-putting and a definite switch up, but one I definitely appreciated. Because after that, it sort of adds elements from the prior track in a different light. So while this is, and I will say the music video helps paint some of these pictures. If Rice was waking up in the morning around the campfire, this is at night around the campfire. This is, we are in the drum circle, we are pounding our chest, we are making our noise, and we are pushing this to the limit. Now, this isn't completely acoustic authentic because it does have elements of noise and synth and texture that do add itself to the song, which makes it more of a modern track and adds that experimental flavor. And the vocals, man. The vocals, like you mentioned on the last track, they're coming from so many different places, and it is an incredibly layered sound because you get female voices, you get male voices, you get the main vocalists of Young Fathers trading off different lines. And it just, again, feels like a gathering of voices as composed to, or as compared to a composition. Like, this isn't people firing off saying, okay, you sing now, now you sing, now you sing, now you sing. No. They are very much, like you said with Rice, they're kind of going from improvisational feel and they're sort of moving along to the music. And it definitely has an off-the-cuff feel to it, but it is rooted in their worldview, in their spirituality. So I did definitely appreciate that. And honestly, I saw quite a bit to the point where I would consider this a cut track. Like, this is right below the horizon of my top three. Like, it on a different day, this probably could creep into the top three. Didn't quite make it this time, but I definitely appreciated I Saw for what it was.
So one of the things you talked about in your dissection about I Saw is the group basically embodying spiritual beliefs within the song. Like, you get the sense of rebellion and a call to arms, or kind of hey, we ain't gonna take their shit anymore. AKA, this is the most Scottish sounding song in the whole track here. But yeah, this song, the group is on record talking about this song essentially being inspired by Brexit. So, just having, that context within the lens of the song. It does add a little bit of appreciation for the song for me, but it didn't need that appreciation in terms of, just adding it. It's about Brexit and all that, all the political landscapes of that, because a lot of the stuff about the song I really do enjoy. You talk about the different approaches to the vocals. That was one of the highlights I absolutely fucking loved about the song. The first vocal that you get is that very I don't want to say distorted, but almost kind of a twisted vocal where you get, I want your shield. I'm not even gonna try to do it justice, but it's the opening bars where the guys talk about I want your shield, I want your weapon, give me that bulletproof vest, and don't forget I'm not susceptible to your nonsense. But then you get that, and then in the next section you get more of a chanty kind of a horse on its back. from there. Like the way just everything, how the vocals take different forms, it's really fantastic. I really did appreciate it as a whole. And by the way, the I want your shield, I want your weapon is a lyrical highlight for me, because if this is about like like a call to arms and like like about Brexit, like this is somebody who's just saying, hey, I hear what you're trying to say, but I'm not susceptible to your nonsense, and I wanna arm myself. I wanna arm myself to be able to battle. So yeah, and that's kind of contrasted a little bit. I don't want to say a little bit, but like I thought it was interesting by within the chorus you get the bars. I saw what I saw. I keep on walking the line. Like somebody can take that as like hey, I saw the injustice that you did, but I kept conforming to the system. It's an interesting dichotomy there. So yeah, outside of those moments, so just the way that the song ends really embodies that call to arms element. Like everything just gets very like very very intense, very just like uplifting. And like the vocalizations within the beat are great. The production is overall amazing, and just the way that the like, yes, it's not as like campfire and groovy as like the previous track, but the grooves are here, dude. Like the grooves are here, and holy shit, man! Like it's so good. So yeah, the only thing I got to say about it is, unlike you, it is not a cut track for me. It is my second favorite track off the whole record.
Ooh, second place. All right. You know what? I respect that. I dig that because, again, this is a really good song. And again, I think what maybe pulled me back a little bit from putting it in my top three was just that it had so many elements that were similar to Rice. I was like, okay, this sounds great, but they're starting to do things that I've already heard in the first track. So they're, while they have the right to establish a theme, it did kind of turn me off a little bit. And also the main reason why is just I like the other three tracks better, which is just, that's kind of how this works. So, but no, I really do appreciate I Saw For What It Was, and I'm glad that you found room for it in your top three, because it is a banger of a track. Now, will this next track fall in that same category? We will find out right now, because Ryan, I throw it over to you for the next track off of Heavy Heavy, and that is Drum.
So with Drum, I just have one question for you. Can this band stop creating infectious grooves that are just entrancing and just spiritual? Like, fuck me, dude. Like, like coming right out of the gate, like the groove is established right off with the vocals just riding the beat. It's just so simple, but you can really, really feel the groove. Like, the intro bars, for those of you who aren't familiar with the record, the track, like, are, hear the beat of the drums and go numb. Have fun. Go on. Like, you can really just groove to that. If you, dear listener, hear the song and you don't feel a sense of joy within your soul, I'm sorry. You might be soulless. So yeah. Outside of the groove, though, and the way that the bars just open up, the track opens up, the way that the vocals just shift in delivery from the home base that you get from the intro to like the different sections is relatively fantastic. And also, one section that I really did appreciate is the middle section where you get a shift into a different language. Like, I thought that was crazy and really, really fun, and really kind of speaks to like different, like their approach to like incorporating different cultures within their music. So this language, though, that's in that middle section is Yoruba, and the bars are roughly translated to: the child is confused, have you come home, speak up. The child is confused, have you come home, speak up, speak up. The child is confused, they are different. So, a little bit of context there. And just the main melody of this song is just so infectious. Like, I hate to sound so redundant, but like, I was polarized by what this track did to me, dude. Like, I have lack of a better descriptor to it, and like, Aloysius is on record about the song saying it's got sort of a gospel spiritual aspect to it. There's an intensity in it, and it's almost like there's a sermon that is happening. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what's going on here for me. So, yeah, the only other thing I got to say about drum, you kind of alluded to it at the start of the discussion here, where you're like, could drum continue on that, gravy train for you? Absolutely. So much so that I'm not going to deny myself anymore. I'm not going to deny myself happiness. Drum takes the crown. It is easily the best song off the whole record for me.
You mentioned the hook of this song, where, like you said, it goes, hear the beat of the drums and go numb, have fun, go on. As someone who not only is a drummer when he feels like it, but as someone who can appreciate the element of just feeling a beat and letting the music take control of you, I love that line. That line is so good, and it is such a welcoming invite to just let loose and have fun on a track like this. And the music backs that up through and through. Because not only do you get this, like you said, infectious loop of a beat that just goes on, on top of that, you get little nooks and crannies, like how the first verse, after the hook goes on for a little bit, turns this very frenzied rap, which is executed very well. Like, it just goes like, and it just like adds the rhythm of a drum on top of drums, which is just great. You mentioned the second verse being in the Yoruba language, and it is such a strong switch, and it works so well because musically it flows so well. Like, they knew what they were doing with this, and it just hits so hard. And much like the first two tracks, it feels like there is a bit of a chant vibe going on with this track, but I didn't have a problem with it on the first two, and here, weirdly enough, it feels self-aware. Like, this feels like it is a chant track, it is a gospel track, it is very much a sing with the beat and let the world take it from there type of vibe, and it works great too. I really don't have a whole lot to add to what you already have said. In fact, I'm just going to copy your homework and tell you that, yes, drum is in fact also my favorite song off of Heavy Heavy.
We didn't hear the sound of the beat of the drum, the sound of the drum beat, and we went numb and we had fun with this track. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? That is the chimes of friendship echoing in this episode of Hey, Listen to This. Bing, 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 bing. All right, cool. Oh man, I didn't want to come over. Like, I feel like I came into your rebuttal there. Well, your dissection a little bit hot, and I had to cool myself down. But yeah, I'm very glad that we share the same favorite track. And like, the more and more I thought about it, like, the song, like, I could have made an argument with that being my top track, but like, upon further reflection, the track that hit me the hardest was drum. And like, with an album like this, you have to go with in my opinion, you have to go with the track that hits you the hardest. Like, plain and simple. So, but yeah, for lack of a better descriptor, lack of a better segue, Matthew, are you ready to pivot on it to a little bit of a different track here with Tell Somebody?
A little bit of a different track. I would say it's a little bit more than little, because instead of the chant vibes and the very spiritually improvisational feel of the first three tracks, here you have something that's a lot more ethereal, and a lot more slowed down too, and a lot more stripped down. Because at first I thought, okay, the beat's gone, and it wasn't until the track ended where I was like, oh, it's not coming back. The beat is very much not coming back on this track. Rather, this is an ethereal synth layer, and little minimal orchestration that helps this track move along. And the vocal that you get on this track is very reminiscent of something you would hear on Frank Ocean's Blonde, or something of that nature, where the reverb is dialed all the way up and the vocals just sound like they're coming from a mountaintop or an empty music hall. So yeah, it's a very sudden and very shocking twist for me. And I didn't hate it. I definitely thought that for what it was executed rather decently. And lyrically, I did appreciate the track, even though there's not a whole lot of lyrics there. Because, again, if it doesn't maintain the upbeat spirituality, it definitely maintains the repeated chant spirituality of the first three tracks. That's definitely more of a groove based off of a couple of lyrical motifs. And the one that got me the most was, "You sleep, but your soul ain't sound. You scream, because you know it's a long way down." That is a fantastic line. That is a great lyric. But ultimately, though, if I'm being honest with myself, "Tell Somebody" falls into the album track territory. Again, I don't hate this. I thought that the way it built from just a sort of somber, empty echo to this giant swell of noise worked well, but it's a little too atmospheric for my tastes. So it is what it is. "Tell Somebody's" all right. If you dig the kind of slow, atmospheric R&B, this track's for you. Not quite for me. Album track territory for me. Not my bottom track, though.
And for me, I'm very much like, somebody who does enjoy. Like, you kind of set the table there a little bit. I'm going to start by saying it doesn't complete my top three, so, just getting that out right out of the gate. But with "Tell Somebody," this is a track, I was instantly kind of smacked in the face with the opening lyrics. And right away what the song was going to be when the first lyrics are, "You scream, but your soul ain't sound." Fuck me, dude. Those are soul crushing lyrics. And you kind of alluded to the fact there's not many lyrics within the track as a whole, but the song is basically encouraging people that are going through this kind of mental struggle. The best thing you can do is honestly just tell somebody, talk to somebody, and that's such an impactful message. So for that alone, tip the cap. I appreciate what you're doing there, Young Fathers. And yeah, outside of the lyrics, though, the way that the song just is essentially kind of a slow riser of a track. It's very reminiscent of kind of a big church gospel hymn, and very much digging what that's bringing to the table. And the song does really embody the big sound around the halfway mark. It's just so fresh, so clean. Complement that with the messaging of the song and the lyrics. It's just very impactful. And I can't stress this enough. Everyone needs to understand the message of this song within their own lives. And the only other note I got to say about "Tell Someone" is I do enjoy at the end of the track where you get one vocal there saying "tell somebody," and then you get counteracting lines underneath it. So I thought that was very cool, very excellent songwriting right there. And you could have easily just wrote the "tell somebody" bars over and over again till the cows come home, and it would have been a decent way to end off the track. But I appreciate what was going on there. And yeah, the only other thing I gotta really say about "Tell Somebody," though, is I'm kind of putting it in the great song bucket territory. So I guess in terms of buckets and rankings, I could be mistaken, which I don't think I am. I'm putting it 2 buckets higher than what you put "Tell Somebody," though. So with it putting into an album track kind of territory.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you're putting this a couple buckets higher than me, which is just a very fun sentence to say. But as far as my thoughts, I agree with you wholeheartedly that the message and the lyrics of the song are fantastic, and I don't begrudge anyone like this. In fact, I'm going to say what I said about your favorite track off of the Barty Strange album, which is I would love to hear a stripped down acoustic version of this song. I want to hear a version of the song where you really don't get much more than a little basic instrumentation, whether it be piano or guitar, maybe some drums and bass if you really want to make it a full band thing, but something that really showcases the words. Because again, even though I do love the words on this track, the instrumentation, the way the vocals were presented wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. So I'd love for someone to tell somebody and make it so that the words are more out front in a way that everyone can listen to. Because again, the lyrics are great, but the production for me didn't quite make it, but I very highly respect you putting it in the great song bucket. Now, to close out side A of Heavy Heavy, I throw it back to you, Ryan, for track 5, and that track is Geronimo!
Geronimo, indeed, man. So, we return back to, I guess we really didn't go too long away from, like groove tracks, because, the song before Tell Somebody was indeed drums, so then that wasn't very much a groove track, because you and I grew to it so hard that we became numb. But yeah, with Geronimo though, the track really isn't as heavy on the groove as the opening 1 2 3 punch on the album as a whole, but it's a great way to end off side A of the record. Like, the start of the track is just so simple with the spoken word bits about various mantras of life. Like, I very much appreciated what's going on there. And speaking about simple, the beat here is just so simple, but infectious, but not so much in terms of it's gonna possess you to go dance and throw your body against the wall. But it's just, you can really just sink back and really just enjoy what was being brought to the table here. I do enjoy the contrast between the bassy beat, and you get heavily noises accompanying it. And that very very much goes hand in hand with the whole message of the song, where you get that mantra of get on, get off, get on, get off. Just trying to really balancing out life as a whole. So I very much did appreciate what was being brought to the table there. And just I kind of already hinted at this. Most of the song is just a groove of Geronimo, get one, get off. It never gets old for me though. It's just such a nice moment, and it's interesting. You think about tracks like this where you get repetitive lyrics to a T, but on the flip side, a couple reviews ago, we did Big Thief's album Double Infinity, and within that album we had Happy for You, and that was not a good track, and it the lyrics did repeat. But there was no groove here. Here you get a groove. So, and I did enjoy this section where the vocalist is talking about being a son, a brother, an uncle, a father. That's lyrically a highlight for me, for sure. That's a lyrical highlight for me for sure. And this song as a whole, Uluation is on record saying it talks about being about relationships, and how he cites bars of the one that I said it was a lyrical highlight, being a son, brother, uncle, father, and you got to survive. And my mama said you'll never please your woman, but you'll have a good time trying. It's a relatable song again, but you have the nihilistic cynicism from Graham. Nobody goes anywhere really dressed up, just go in the dirt. It's again, he goes on about it's a bit nihilistic, but given the reality of the world and how things are, I think you just need a balance of the things. Jump on, jump off. It's decide either you're hot or you're cold. Don't be lukewarm. You can either go for it or don't. So yeah, that's encapsulating that. That's basically sums up all that's within Geronimo. The Native American hero that he's referencing within the song as a whole. So yeah, overall though, with Geronimo, it's a good song. I would honestly kind of put it into the great song bucket as well. I'm putting it right there in the same bucket as Tell Somebody. Like it's a fun, cool song.
So my thoughts on Geronimo, a lot of them echo yours. First of all, it does go back into the beat, but the beat is a lot softer and lower than it has been earlier on. Like this is more of a typical like hip hop beat stripped down to just a little bit of drum, and it's not like booming in your face. It's just very almost reminds me of the song "What" by a Tribe Called Quest, where it holds its own to keep time, but it's not really doing anything other than that. It gets in the pocket, but just deep enough to make things feel whole, but it's not, again, like boom, boom, boom. Like it comes across very nice. It's very well produced. And then you get to the meat of the song, which, like you said, the verses have a very everyday life kind of feel to them, where it talks about things like, keeping in touch with the Joneses and providing for your family and providing for yourself. Like, it almost reminds me a little bit of a lot of songs that take this certain method, whether it's Chop Suey by System of a Down or much more cynically Friday by Rebecca Black, where it just kind of describes moments in the day as they go by. But that hook is so damn infectious. Like the way that, as we've talked about, it has layered vocals of, sort of the guys in the back doing their thing while the main hook goes, Geronimo, get on, get off, Geronimo. Like, it just, for whatever reason, got me. Like, it got me good. Like, it is a very infectious hook, as this band is wont to do. So, yeah, the lyrics are solid, the beat's solid, and the hook is great. And you know me, I'm a man who likes my hooks, so I'm just going to come out and say it that Geronimo is in my top 3, and it is landed at number 3.
I can totally co-sign that. Not obviously so much so that it shares the same placement within my top 3, but it's a good track nonetheless, and it very much is like a proper way to end off side A of the record. And yeah, I'm glad that you dig it. I'm glad that you're digging the album as a whole. So far, so good, man. In my opinion. But before we, shoot on in to the back half of the record, Matthew, I have just a simple question for you.
And what is that simple question for me, Mr. Kearns?
If the dear listener out there is just, really hearing what we're bringing to the table in this here review tonight, in terms of recording, but who knows when they're listening to it. It could be during the day. It could be during the morning. I don't know. You do you, honey boo boo. You live your life. I'm proud of you. Just know that. And they really are, they just want to help support what we're doing to help continue on in our musical journeys and help support them in their musical journeys and help bring different albums to their ears. What are some ways that they can help support what we do on a week out basis? And in addition to that, if they're feeling so froggy and they want to jump on with us further, what are other avenues that they can help connect with us?
Well, first of all, the way they can keep supporting what we do here at Hey Listen to This is to keep on listening to this podcast. And the way they can do that is to find us on their favorite podcasting platform of choice. We're on Pocket Cast, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, and we're also on YouTube. So if you like to use YouTube for your podcast listening purposes, you can find us there as well. We upload our episodes every week to those platforms. So if you're on there and you are looking for us, just type in Hey Listen to This, and there we be. And if you like what you're hearing, as Ryan alluded to, feel free to let us know by subscribing to our channels on any of those platforms. If you're on YouTube, give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe to our channel. If you're on any other ones, feel free to give us a 5-star rating, or 4.5 if it's, the end of the month. So appreciating that would very much go a long way to help us. Also, if you want to help spread the word about us, just share the link, or, send it to a friend. But perhaps you're not sure who that friend is. Perhaps you're thinking, okay, there's a few people who like this artist that they're talking about, but I'm not sure who they are, and I'm not sure if there's more. Maybe I'll share this to social media. Well, you're in luck, because we are on social media as well. We are on Blue Sky. We are on Threads. We are on Instagram. And we are on Facebook. So if you're looking for us on there, the username is ttheylisten. Again, that is ttheylisten. Or if you just look for our logo with our title of our show, Hey, Listen to This, you can find us there too, where we once again post our episodes with links each and every week. And lastly, speaking of Hey, Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email account that you can reach out to us at, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. If you want to give us some positive feedback, some critical feedback, or perhaps a suggestion for a future album review, because we have done listener requests in the past, and we are willing to do them again if you so choose to tangle with us in that way. So again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. On social media, we're on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can find our episodes on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or anywhere you can find podcasts that you like to listen to. And as always, to those who have done this week in, week out, month in, month out, along this journey with me and Ryan, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, we are just two dudes who like to talk about music. We're not part of any major podcast network. We are not sponsored by any major brand of clothing, major brand of boner pills, major brand of soft drink. We are just two dudes doing this for the love of the game. And as someone who loves the game as much as me, Ryan, I thank you as always for being a great co-host, helping me out every week to talk about these albums and putting up with my shenanigans. It's a great time.
Absolutely, man. I mean, let's face it, the year of our Lord 2026 has not been the easiest to, endure. And, it's just a pleasure of, just sinking our teeth in to different albums. Whether it's just, us trying to be part of the zeitgeist and being like, hey, let's talk about some T Swift, or we're being a hair self-indulgent and we're talking about Toledo. It's always a great time, diving into music and just really, enjoying the art form as a whole. So, and, also, I didn't really, compliment you so well, as much, but, you're an excellent co-host as well, man. I think we do make a good pair. So, that being said, I feel like we continue on in our journey, our partnership, our musical, awakening. I'm going with that. And continuing on in the journey within Heavy by Young Fathers. And the way that we do that is we check out what song 6 out of 10 has to offer, and that track is indeed Shoot Me Down. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, good sir. Shoot Me Down kicks off the back half of this record, and it kicks it off in a rather pretty solid way, because you start with this intro loop of various voice samples that are very intense. You get a bunch of people saying "shoot me, don't shoot me," and then shoot, and it has this sort of infectious flow, as we've talked about so many times throughout the album already, where each piece is interlocking with each other and creating this machine-like flow to get the track started. And then it transitions so smoothly into the main instrumentation of the track, which is pretty upbeat, as it has been for the majority of the tracks as well. You get a very frenzied beat with a little bit of layered synth, and the transition from the sampling to the instruments is very, very nice. Unfortunately, after that, you get into the vocals, which, I'm sorry, I thought that they were a little too processed. Like, I was not a fan of the falsetto on the refrain, and on the verses, I thought the processing of the vocals was just a little too far out there. Um, and on the on further listens, it didn't get as bad. It didn't get as noisy or as crazy. I was able to just sort of tune it out and just appreciate this track for what it is. But on a couple listens, I was just like, I'm not so sure about this one. And then the outro of this track, um, once again, like we talked about, they have a lot of layered parts. Um, but instead of the opening tracks like I Saw or Rice or even Drum having this a feeling of natural gathering where voices are gathering all in one space and it feels very authentic. Here it feels like the layering is there for the sake of layering. And ultimately it comes off as pretty noisy. Like, it just feels like they're throwing parts together just to mash them all and create noise. And granted, this band has experimented with a lot of noise elements earlier on in the album, and those came across very well. This one I just felt was a little bit of a step down from that. And I will be fully transparent here. I've listened to this album 4 times in lieu of reviewing this. And after the 3rd time, it was going to be my least bottom track. It was going to be my bottom track on the whole album. But after the 4th one, I was like, okay, this track isn't that bad. So I am elevating it from least favorite track to album track territory.
You kind of pulled the switcheroo on me there. I thought you were going to be like, it's a bottom track. And I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Like, there's a track later on that I'm thinking could be the bottom track. I don't know. I'm not you. I'm not in your body right now. But what I am doing right now is, talking about my thoughts about Shoot Me Down. And I feel like I'm a hair higher on the track than you. So I felt like I agree with you. The opening of the track was a solid way to open up the song, with the production being very thudding, and you get the contrasting lines of take a few steps off and take a few steps against, back off. I thought that was pretty cool. An excellent way to open up the track. And just overall though, I found the production of the track outside of that just to be pretty simple. It's not bad though. It works well within the context of the song, but not that every track needs to be fire. But with what we've heard throughout the record here so far, there's definitely other tracks where things get a little bit more intense. But this track's not bad though. And I think our biggest disagreement's gonna be within the vocal processing. I know when it comes to vocals, on one hand, I get more of being oh, hey, no, that's too pitchy. And, I feel like I'm uber critical in that. But when it comes to, vocals that are over processed, a la, Bon Iver kind of style, or, many other different examples that I can tell you, and mention, I'm more forgiving of that, and I kind of enjoy that. On the flip side, that's not really your cup of tea. And that's totally fine. We're totally 2 different people. That's what makes the show really work so well. But I found the way that the vocal lines in this song and the way they contrast each other, it's pretty good. You get the refrain of the narrator asking not to be shot down, but then you get the brighter vocals that begin their bars by saying, "Lord, I know every dog has its day." That's what they say. And I felt like there was an excellent, exchange back and forth. So I really dig what was going on there. And the track as a whole just felt it felt so spiritually cleansing, especially with how the bridge just sends the song into that outro. So yeah. That being said, though, this is not my 3rd favorite track off the whole record, and I'm not even gonna put this in a cut track or even great song bucket territory. It goes in the good song bucket territory, mainly because of the production not being super spectacular, and that's fine. Not every track needs to be fire, like I mentioned. No real lyrical highlights for me, but it didn't really impact my overall thoughts about the track as a whole. And Aloysius is on record saying the song is definitely steeped in humanity. You get everything in there. You get insecurities, the cynicism, you get the joy, the pain, the indifference. You get all those things turning into this cauldron. There's a level of regret in there. Again, when you lean into yourself, it becomes more relatable to everyone else. And just for full disclosure, all these hey, Aloysius is on record saying, or the band's on record saying, I'm referencing all the notes that I was able to find through Apple Music, so just citing my sources there. It's actually interesting that they were able to have a note for every single track, and I'm picking and choosing the most notable notes. I'm not reading everything verbatim, but yeah, shoot me down. I'm one step higher than you on appreciation of it, but ironically enough, I don't really have too many critiques about the song other than the production is a little simple, but it's not bad.
Yeah, again, this is one of those, I would say, very much falls in the category of if I'm not paying attention, this song's all right, because that's how I feel about it. When I was really digging in and thinking, I'm not so high on that falsetto, but when I was listening to it today, I was on the drive home from work, I was like, you know what, all right, this song's okay. I can groove out to it. It's fine. It does what it needs to do, and that's that. So, yeah, I grew my appreciation just a little bit for this, even though I do have some critiques of it. And I think you are sort of in agreement that this track is all right for what it is, but it's not necessarily the most spectacular of tracks on this album. So with that in mind, I am fully fine with pivoting on over to the next track, which is Uluation or Uluation. I probably have butchered that twice. Ryan, I'm just going to throw it to you and stop talking.
Well, let's face it, we're two dumb white guys who try our best, man. So with this track here, Uluation, I'm calling it Uluation, but one thing that I'm going to just set the scene for in terms of just a way to properly introduce the track is I'm gonna go with the cliff note that I have about the track first and then work back from there. So Caius is on record saying a really close friend of his who he calls a sister called him while they were making Uluation, saying, I needed a place to stay. I'm having a difficult time with my husband. I'm really angry at him. And he said, if you need a place to chill, just come down to the studio and listen to us while we work. But you mustn't say a word because we're working. They were working on the track. And she started humming in the background. And Aloy picked up on it and was like, give her a mic. She's singing about gratitude in the track, and Miss feeling very angry, feeling like shit, and life's not fair. She still had the emotion that she can practice gratitude, and I think that's a beautiful contrast of emotions. And considering that context as a whole, the vocalist that we hear here is having all sorts of negative emotions. Every reason to be pissy about life, but she's choosing gratitude. One, that sounds like a very bro-y kind of spiritual guru kind of thing. So I'm going to acknowledge that for what it is. But the performance of here is absolutely chef's kiss. I'm gonna tip my cap. I'm gonna take off my cap for the sister in question here, because the way that the vocals here come across so happy, so spiritual, so free. Dude, I wanna this is happy music. If I'm ever feeling upset, depressed, I'm gonna maybe put this on and see how I feel, because I feel like that could do the trick, man. But yeah, for those of you who aren't aware about the track as a whole, the track is essentially done in an entirely different language. So for those of you who got upset about Bad Bunny during the Super Bowl because he only speaks Spanish, this track ain't for you. But for those of you who can, maybe try to challenge themselves and, appreciate music as an art form as it is, here, everything is really good. The language as a whole is a mix of, again, kind of mispronounce this, but Shona and Zulu / Ndilbi, which is just a mixture of different kind of languages from Zimbabwe and South Africa. So yeah, that's fun to know. The vocals though here, like I mentioned, they are so good. I just love the tribal nature of them. And, like, here's the beautiful thing about the song. Like, if I didn't even look up or use, like, Google Translate to, like, really kind of translate the bars, like, beat for beat, you know exactly what's going on here. This is a song about being happy, really just embracing life. I'm not gonna read the whole translation, like, bar for bar, but, like, I'm gonna just highlight in the outro where the singer is just preaching gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Come with gratitude. Go with gratitude. Walk with the gratitude. You are going with gratitude. Like, this is basically like a preacher grabbing you by the throat, being like, you, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And I really did appreciate that, man. It was a very well execution. The song's essentially just vibes as a whole. Like, it's nothing but just great vibes, and I love it. The piano lick that's played in the background alongside the bass at the start of the song creates such a sunny texture, and the guitar that comes in after just only adds like another texture element, and it really complements the song so well. And the ending of the song with the swirling of all the elements of the song coming together to create such joy, it's all just so good, man. That being said, it goes in the great song bucket territory. It's just a great song nonetheless. Not so much so that I can really walk back and be like, you know what? Hey, it's a contender, but it's a noteworthy song nonetheless.
Yeah, I was taken aback by this song because, again, you don't expect a song like this to appear on most albums of any type of mainstream ideology. And to be fair, this album is not that mainstream, so they had the room to work with it. But we talked a lot about this album about the sort of tribal chant feel, the gathering around the campfire type of feel that these tracks have had. Well, that subtext becomes the text on this song because, like you said, it is very much just a song of chanting and a song of chanting in another language. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. That performance is fantastic because you get the very joyous vocals, the very effervescent vocals, where it just, even though the lyrics themselves can be on the edge of preachiness and almost cynical at times, the way it comes across is so, again, bubbly and just inspiring in a sense. And not only that, but the instrumentation matches that sort of bubbliness, that effervescence, where it just has this lively, jumpy bounce to it throughout the track. And not only that, but you get that sort of weird piano that adds that element of artiness to it. That you're kind of like, why is there a piano on a track like this? And then you're just like, oh, it actually really works a lot. So yeah, I dug this track quite a bit too. But like you, I am relegating it to the great song bucket because it didn't do quite enough for me to get into that top three territory. It almost kind of reminds me in a sense of Within You, Without You by the Beatles off Sgt. Pepper. Just as such a hard shift in musical presence that sound really good, but at the same time, you're just like, it's so out there that I can't really compare it to anything else because it's its own thing of itself. That's what this track is, but I dug the performance much like you did.
I'm very glad about that, and I just really appreciate tracks like this on a record like this because, yes, you get like experimentation within the whole album as a complete unit, but I feel like Uluation, it's very much a necessary component of the album. Like it meshes well within the album's context. So I felt like that was pretty good. Yeah. Are you ready to sink or swim with the next track here?
I am ready to sink or swim with the next track, and I hope I don't sink by basically saying that it is, for lack of a better term, Drum Part 2. For a couple reasons. Number one, it has that same frantic, upbeat nature that drum has, where it just goes into this very deep groove that just loops on end and drags you into it. The only difference is that this groove is a whole lot faster, like a whole lot faster. Like if that was drum, that's sink or swim. Like that's how fast we're going here, and it just somehow works very well, which is a credit to the band and the vocalist for being able to keep up with their own expectations on this. And the other reason I consider it to be a sequel to Drum is because it takes a very strong mantra and just repeats it over and over. And it's a great line. It's the lyrical highlight of the track for me. It's a great line. You either sink or swim or do nothing. And damn if that ain't life. That's just life, man. You either sink or swim or do nothing. You can just stand on the shore, floaties on, dry as a dog biscuit, man. Like, that's just your options. And unlike Shoot Me Down, I did appreciate the falsetto on this track. I did appreciate the vocal performances that were going on. And also an improvement from Shoot Me Down was how the different elements towards the end of the song were layered. We get back to that feeling of gathering. We get back to that feeling of having different elements placed on top of one another for the sake of a natural swelling of noise, natural swelling of feeling. And even though there's a tiny bit of processing behind it and a tiny bit of calculated execution, it's not worse for the wear. It definitely comes across as a giant swelling that adds to it. And lastly, the verses on this track, which I'll allow you to dive in a little bit harder, are probably the deepest on the entire album. Like, the meanings behind them are so intricate and so in your face that you're just like, whoa, these guys really are trying to go for a spiritual, philosophical, and overall lyrical home run, which they do. So I very much appreciated the verses for what they are. And again, they are anchored by that sentiment of you either sink or swim or do nothing. So when you have a thesis statement like that, the rest of the words have a lot of work to do and they rise to the occasion. So I really don't have a whole lot more to say about Sink or Swim other than my top three is complete. Sink or Swim takes the silver medal like the Canadians and is number 2.
Oh man, I very much appreciate that nod to the Olympics there, man. But yeah, with my thoughts and feelings about Sink or Swim, you kind of hit the nail right on the head with you calling this like Drum Part 2, but we're faster this time. So like it's Fast and the Furious, but it's too fast, too furious, man. So. Yeah, the gospel feeling that you get from the start of this track is just so damn infectious. And notice that it's like the umpteenth time that I've used the word infectious within this review. So just make a note of that. They'll come up later. The hand claps, driving drums, rapid piano licks, the tribal trance of the mantra of the track being you either sink or swim, and the vocals just riding everything like, chef's kiss, man. That's a good to meet the ball. That's a spicy meet the ball right there. And it's funny, like, I was thinking about, like, when we did the Jelly Roll review and, like, how I think my favorite track off of that record, I can't even remember what it was, but it was the one, if I'm not mistaken, it was the one where it had more of a gospel kind of element to it, and I was really taken back by that. This shit puts that shit in the shitter. So just putting that within context there. But yeah, kind of dive into some of the lyrical meanings here. So the middle conversation with the quote unquote dealer was a solid highlight for me. It's for those of you those of you who are keeping track at home. It's the third verse. So the bars read, "My dealer picks up the phone. He says, 'God won't everyone leave me alone.' He said, 'Am I the shelter to weather your storm? Or am I the rhythm you jangle your bones to?' He said, 'There's things I want to do, but the world ain't fair. There's things I must do, but I really don't care. There's things I want to do, but life ain't fair.'" Like, the contrast of like, you know, am I the shelter to weather your storm, or am I the rhythm to jangle your bones to? Like, you can really dive into those bars there about, like, you know, the relationship, and like, you don't even have to do like a drug dealer kind of, like, you know, relationship kind of here, because, like, you know, it is talking about a dealer, but this could be a dealer of, like, you know, some sort of happiness, or it could be as simple as, like, you know, turning on music such as this of, like, you know, hey, are you looking for this person to this substance to keep you away from the storm and give you shelter, or you're using this means as a way to, like, jangle your bones to? Like, you know, it's just an interesting dichotomy there, and I really did appreciate that. And another line that I did love, you don't really have to, I don't really have to go into so much into deep analysis with, which was so much water, not a drop to drink. Like, you know, that was really cool. And I just love how the lead vocals work so well against the repetition of the backing vocals. Like, I thought that was really, really cool. And yeah, I don't have any other notes about Sink or Swim, except for the fact we have completed my top 3 with Sink or Swim here. And with Sink or Swim, for those of you who have not been keeping track at home, it lands at my third favorite spot. Third favorite track off the whole record.
Very respectable, man. This track is just very, very good. It does, again, have similar vibes to Drum, and just has that very positive messaging, that upbeat nature, that infectious groove, as we've said 1,000 times, and we'll keep on saying until it stops being true. And for those of you filling out your scorecards, you may realize that there's only one slot left to go, and that is my least favorite track off of the album, which I will not give away just yet, because for now, it is time to pivot on over to the penultimate track off of Heavy Heavy. And Ryan, the floor is yours for Holy Moly.
So, before I give my thoughts about Holy Moly, I'm locking it in right now, calling my shot. I'm Babe Ruth at Yankee Stadium here. I'm going to say Holy Moly is not your least favorite track. I believe Be Your Lady is your least favorite track. But we'll get to it when we get to it. But with Holy Moly here, my thoughts about the penultimate track. Good song. The driving dark industrial beat works so well to kick everything off, and like the inclusion of the piano towards the halfway mark was a solid touch. I very much appreciated that, and the sense of rhythm and of groove and spiritual communion is still very much alive in this track. And like, that's one thing I'll just say about the album as a whole. Like, we haven't really talked about melody so much within the whole track, and we haven't really talked about, like, you know, certain spots as much, but the rhythm here, the overall feeling of, like, you know, a lot of the tracks, that's basically what Young Fathers is doing here within the album as a whole, and they executed pretty well. And I very much have been appreciating it a lot here so far. The vocals are doing a great job driving a message of light against a very much dark beat. And I feel like this song as a whole is very much about dying. like you get bars like, time pass over when winter brings the hope. Joy shall follow when winter brings the hope. Like, time pass over, like, you know, life's coming to its end, but winter brings the hope. Like, you know, when you think about winter, you think about, like, coldness, but if people are thinking about winter bringing hope, like, you know, oh, hey, my life's about to end, I'm having hope about, like, the pain ending. So I thought that was pretty cool. I also did appreciate, like, you know, bars like reading, don't feel ready to erect, my back still broken from life's effect. Like, I was just like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of feel that, man. That's some good bars there. And yeah, just the only other thing I got to say about the track, though, is Lucius is on record saying the song's the contrast between light and dark. You're forcing two things that don't make sense together. You get a pop song and some weird beat. You're forcing them to have this conversation and do something, and then Holy Moly comes out of that. It's just two different worlds coming together, and what cements is the lyrics. So yeah, holy moly though, like I'm walking away from the track, putting the song firmly in the good song bucket.
So this track starts with a similar notion to that of Sink or Swim, which is a frantic beat, and I would say this one's even more frantic than Sink or Swim, which itself was an upgrade on franticness from drum, because we're just, we're Michael Scott in the 5K. We're fast. We're very fast. And I will say that a lot of the elements that made Sink or Swim work here too. Maybe just a slight step down. Particularly the vocals on the chorus being a hair on the process side. But I agree with you that the words are very, very good. My lyrical highlight on the track was, I gets no sleeps, no eats and no rest, covered in violence with love round my neck. Life is so boring when you're already the best. Like, I hear that line and I'm not thinking it's Young Fathers. I'm thinking we're talking like late 90s, early 2000s Jay-Z. Gangster in your face, middle finger to the law. Like, he is, that is such a baller bar right there. And I'm just like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And much like Sink or Swim, it ends with this frenzy adding of layers, which I do think work again. I think it's a little bit more processed and a little less authentic than it was on Sink or Swim, but it does come off pretty solidly. So yeah, I think Holy Moly is a track I would put into the great song bucket, honestly. Like, this is a track that I would struggle to probably put this either in great song territory or cut track. I would say this goes cut track, honestly. Like, this is a really solid, really good track that on a different day I possibly could consider for my top 3, but today is not that day, so cut track territory is where it goes. So your prediction is correct. This is not my least favorite song on the record.
Oh man, someone pick up the phone because I just called it, and for good reason. When we get into Be Your Lady, we will share our opinions. And to start this review, I haven't I stated that I did have a bottom track, and I'm standing by that. But I'm gonna let you have the floor with "Be Your Lady," man. And why don't you close off the review by talking about your least favorite track off the whole record, man?
So, "Be Your Lady." My first note about this track is that there is too much reverb. Like, it's weird because it feels like the vocals on here might be a little less processed than they were on Tell Somebody, but somehow the effect is nowhere near as good. It definitely just has that feel of, hey, we recorded this in a vocal booth and we're just going to go into Pro Tools or Audacity or Adobe Audition and just beat the living hell out of it till it feels like, it feels like you took like something that was a natural WAV file and just beat it down to a 256 kilobyte MP3. A lot of you are not going to understand what I mean by that. Look it up. It's fun. Anyways, the vocals are so processed and it just feels like they're so thin at the beginning. And then it switches into the verse, which I thought was all right. And it definitely had, again, a bit of a Frank Ocean feel to it. And then it gets into the build into that big old noise cluster in the middle of the song, which, I'm sorry, to me, that was a noise for the sake of noise. Like, that was just a bunch of, like, throwing up switches, putting in effects, and just saying, this is the noisy part. This is the part that feels dark because there's a lot of white noise. It's just like, not really. No, this just kind of sounds like crap. And also the beat that accompanies that noisy part. You mentioned this during our television review of Elevation, and I liked it on Elevation, but here I didn't like it as much. The way that the beat just feels off by like a half second or a millisecond, like, to me, that just kind of really took things out for me. I will say that there are a couple good elements to this track, or at least one good element, which is after the noise section, you get this R&B swing element that takes the verse and just sort of makes it feel lolly lolly loo. This is a smooth R&B track like in the days of old. And I almost gave this track a pass because of that part alone, because it felt like they were parodying themselves to a certain degree. But on a few re-listens, I was like, nah, it's good, but it's not quite good enough to save it, because after that part, it goes into the noise again with the offbeat and the white noise for the sake of white noise. So this is the worst track I've ever heard. Like, I've heard a lot more tracks on this show that have outright pissed me off. This is not one of them, but overall, I left this track more disappointed than anything else and thinking to myself, I don't really need to hear this track ever again. So Be Your Lady, unfortunately, is the dud on Heavy Heavy. It's a shame because it is the closing track as well, but it is what it is.
And my thoughts about Be Your Lady, I thought you were going to go a lot harder in the paint than I anticipated. But, I very much appreciated your analysis about the track as a whole. But, yeah, for me, I very much enjoyed the start of the song with, like, the piano-led instrumentation with the vocals kind of doing their thing. Like, it's a very soulful kind of beginning. But, yeah, dude, one thing is pretty apparent for me, and one thing that I kind of struggled with as a whole is the fact that that beat that you were talking about, where thing like it comes out of nowhere, like the ta 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 ta, like I after I gave my initial scoring of the album, I specifically was trying to make peace with the beat. Like, is there any decent way that I can justify this beat, this little inclusion within the track? And I came to the realization, no, I can't really justify it. And it's not so much so that it instantly puts the track in the bottom track territory, because, like I said, I don't have a bottom track here. This could have been it because of that beat. And, for me, if you're going to do something kind of crazy and off kilter, make it link within the context of the song, or just make it work somehow. Don't just be like, hey, I'm doing a song and that doesn't work, man. But I will say, though, getting back into some positive bits about the song, I did enjoy, like you, how the song did switch back into, a different style after that, but eventually just went back into that thudding beat. I didn't appreciate that. But one thing I did appreciate, though, as an end to the track, and the end as the album as a whole, is the line, the repetition of the line, "Can I take 10 points of loving out of the bank, please?" That was a great way to end off the album. And apparently that line, this is referencing what Caius has said on Apple Music, is he's repeating it and he's switching up his accents within it as well in conversation, because of just where he's lived. He's reflecting his journeys. Sometimes he speaks like somebody who's from Washington, D.C., or sometimes he's speaking like somebody who's lived in the south side of Edinburgh, or sometimes he's speaking like somebody who's from Lagos in Nigeria. So I did appreciate that. I didn't really catch that within the context of the song as a whole, but I wasn't really listening for it, to be honest with you. I thought that was just noteworthy as a whole. And apparently the group designed this as a perfect way to loop back to the first track of the album, which I tried to experiment with that. I don't see the loop back. It doesn't organically loop back, but it's fine. I did appreciate what they were trying to go for there. But with Be Your Lady as a whole, I'm putting it as the only mid-track off the whole album.
And that's fair. Yeah, again, you mentioned the lyrics at the end, and I kind of felt like, that added to my theory of this being sort of a self-parody. Like, this is them just sort of, parodizing the idea of glad handing for love and, being the good guy or being the good lady, or I could barely decipher the lyrics if I'm going to be completely honest. But, yeah, this track just didn't really do it for me at all, and I'm kind of glad to know that you had a couple of issues with it as well, because they probably could have smoothed it out a little bit or gone with something completely different. But it is what it is. That was the final track, my least favorite track, your only mid track, and thus concludes Heavy Heavy. 10 songs up, 10 songs down, scorecards filled out, and one thing left to say.
We did it.
We did it, man. We became young fathers and got heavy, heavy in the process. So, I will go ahead and go first with my overall rating. This album, man, I was caught off guard by it multiple times because it is so rare to hear an album this experimental that just kind of throws together a bunch of different elements from a bunch of different genres and somehow come out the other side with a lot of flowers and a lot of good music. Because, again, when you talk about songs like Sink or Swim or Drum or I Saw or Geronimo, there are elements that work so well together that could easily be their own song, could easily be their own elements, but when you put them together, it just creates this musical whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. And even on the tracks that don't quite make it for me, whether it be Your Lady or Shoot You Down, there were elements of that I liked too. So I'm not going to say this is one of the greatest albums of all time, because there are elements where I felt like it was repetitive and got a little bit samey sounding, but the same sound that it keeps going back to is just so good. And the way that it has that spiritual flow and this daringness to innovate with different sounds in different ways garners a lot of respect for me. So I am going to give Heavy Heavy by Young Fathers a solid 8 out of 10.
And for me, as somebody who's been a casual fan of Young Fathers throughout their album and their work since 2015, I was like you, kind of caught off guard with this album. I knew what the album could bring to the table as a whole, but actually to sit down and really just digest what was being brought to the table by the group was an entirely different journey. And the journey that I took upon the whole record was an amazing one. I kind of alluded as a whole. The main thing about this album is it's infectious, it's experimental, it's spiritual, it's cleansing. It's all these different kind of adjectives that you can throw at it. If you think about songs like I Saw, Drum, Sink or Swim, Uluation, Geronimo, Tell Somebody. There's many different flavors that are being brought to the table, and they all work so cohesively as a complete package that I was just completely impressed with what the three dudes were bringing to the table here. And I'm an immense fan of this album, so much so that I was just really tempted to give this album a perfect score. But if it wasn't for the fact that they didn't stick the landing with Be Your Lady and that thudding beat, this would have been an easy 10 out of 10, hombre. I was really, taken back by what this album was bringing to the table. So, because it didn't stick to the landing, I have to be honest with myself and dock it a half of a point. I'm giving Heavy Heavy by Young Fathers a beefy 9.5 out of 10.
So your 9.5 out of 10 and my 8 out of 10, you put those two together, it's 17.5. And if you divide that by 2, I believe that gets us 8.75 out of 10 as an average score, because
math
never lies. It doesn't do drugs. Stay in school. So My next album recommendation, I kind of struggled with a little bit because there were a few albums I thought of. I did mention Blonde and Frank Ocean a couple times, but the band I'm going to go with, because of the different sound elements and layers and putting things on top of one another and the repetitive nature, there really is only one album I could think of as a true recommendation for this album. And that is an album by a band of white guys, so sorry if that spoils your mood. But it is Animal Collective and their album Merriweather Post Pavilion. Much like this album, a lot of songs that rely heavily on instrumentation, layers, vocal layers, and overall just going for vibes. Like, a lot of vibes on that album, much like there's a lot of vibes on this album. So, Merriweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective is my recommendation based off this album.
I need to listen to that album again. It's been a while. I'm due a re-listen of that. But for me, the next album recommendation, I'm gonna go with another Young Fathers LP, and I kind of did some extracurricular activity, in preparation for this review. And in that, I kind of went back to their older works that I have appreciated in the past. I went back to White Men or Black Men 2, and I went to their other album, their next album in their catalog, Cocoa Sugar. And I was just like, what album between those would most reflect what Heavy is? And I kind of went with Cocoa Sugar. Solid album. I would heavily recommend checking it out. It's their 2018 release. It's just one back from their catalog. So, yeah, easy recommendation for me.
So for those of you keeping track, Ryan recommends Cocoa Sugar by Young Fathers, and I recommend Merriweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective as our recommendations based off of Heavy by Young Fathers, which, as we stated, is an 8.75 average out of 10. So, yeah, kudos to you, Ryan, for bringing us home strong on Black History Month. Again, the fact that you said this group was from Scotland put me off guard at first, but ever since then, I have grown to really appreciate this album.
Oh, thank you, man. It means a lot. And actually, fun fact about this record as a whole, it apparently won the Scottish Album of the Year for the year it was released. So I thought that was pretty cool, man.
I saw that. That is very cool that their fellow Scotsman gave him such a high honor.
Oh man! But speak about high honors and enjoying music as a whole. There's one thing that we have to do before we officially walk with gratitude and walk this review into bed, I guess. And that being Matthew. Well, where are we going next week on Hey Listen to This? What is going to be the next review that we're going to be doing?
So, if I'm not mistaken, our next review is going to be our 1st of March. And with your blessing, I believe it is time once again to dive into our DEI territories and push forward with our next theme, which is our second installation of Women's History Month, where we focus on female artists and their albums. If you are okay with that, Ryan, I believe I got the blessing from you through the screen there, so that is a good to go. So, I was debating on whether to give you context for what you're going to be choosing next, but I decided not to do that because it's more fun that way. So, for this first review of Women's History Month, Ryan, I'm going to make you pick between 3 U.S. states. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, your 3 options are Texas, Oklahoma, or New Jersey.
Oh, man. For completely arbitrary reasons, I'm going to go Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. All right. So, do you have any idea what genre we're going to be covering next?
No. Because I could be is it country or western? But you could be completely pulling the rug from out underneath me and doing a whole bait and switch kind of like, maneuver. Or it could be country western. I don't know. I'm here for it, though.
Well, for full disclosure, my hands are not on the rug. I am standing nowhere near the rug. It is, in fact, country we're going back to, and 90s country to be particular. And to be even more particular, we're talking about the redheaded queen of country herself, Reba McEntire, and her 1996 album entitled What If It's You?
That is the question that I'm asking every day. What if it's you, man? So, I'm really excited about diving into some Reba McEntire. I don't think I've listened to her stuff. I mean, like, I'm aware of who she is as a person because I'm alive, obviously. But yeah, I'm totally psyched for next week, man.
I am too. But as far as this review, again, if you've listened through the whole thing, we thank you for your time. You are the best, and I only hope that because you're the best, you live a very exciting life, because as a wise man once said, life is so boring when you're already the best.